versus Octalysis, but lost in Game 5. So now this is a great start for them, winning Game 1 in such decisive fashion.
If you ever wondered what Team Freedom looks like, you could just show the damage screen. 22,000 hero damage was the tops of anybody in that game. There was only 5 kills on their side, 5-2. And that's how Team Freedom plays. But it is Sky Temple, where after you get that lead that we saw, it is very easy to avoid the team fight. When the boss was taken, and then it was top-bottom temples, it's basically game over. I mean, the win probability for a team like Team Freedom at that point is somewhere near 99%. There's no coming back against the team with that type of, I guess, structure around the way that they like to play and with their macro sense. And against that composition, it was just a little bit too easy beyond that point. But again, that is Team Freedom's map pick. That is their play style that is very hard to play against.
Especially if you fall behind.
Yeah.
Like you don't fall behind against Team Freedom. That's about worst case scenario.
Yeah.
And especially on Sky Temple, where the objective does the work for you, my friends.
It was good. I mean, it was clean. That's if you're a Team Freedom fan, that's exactly the game that you want to see. The real test will come when they get to a battleground. We saw Simplicity, when their backs were against the wall, they like to go to a map like Towers of Doom. Battlefield's banned, which is one of the best maps to fight on. Towers was their next one. It's like, well, you can't run because everything is right here in the middle of the map. So it will be something that if it does come, if they want to choose that. We know Simplicity oftentimes likes first pick, so a lot of times they give away map control, but when it does come, worst comes to worst, they do pick that battleground amongst others, but we'll see how that plays out.
Well, we took a look at the global leaderboard earlier for the HGC cheer program. Now let's take a closer look at the top teams in NA for who's been cheered for the most. And Heroes Hearth Esports Tempo Storm at the very top, quite a large margin, but of course that makes a ton of sense, those being the two teams that represented NA at the midseason Brawl J-How.
I mean, that's definitely a good way to get your name out there, and you can see Team Freedom, Octalysis, and Endemic. Endemic's logo is cool, their colors are cool, their jackets are cool. I'm just going to keep plugging it until they give me like that Paul George jacket.
They're just swag, man.
Yeah, but seriously, me and Paul George are like the same size.
I really don't think you're going to get his coat, but maybe a coat.
Bet on it.
All right, I'm not going to do that. Let's see where we're going for Game 2 between Simplicity and Team Freedom. It's Volskaya Foundry.
Yeah, again, Simplicity loves first pick. They feel it's very dominant, it's very strong. They've believed this for quite some time. You go back to all Zuna teams for quite a while. There's been a lot of feedback from them on it, despite the lack of success on his rosters in particular. Volskaya, another map, and this is one where we saw the Genji ban against Simplicity. We also saw the Tracer ban against Team Freedom. This is one where when we saw this at Midseason Brawl, it was you've got to take that Tracer away because this, as you said, we are not on the patch where Tracer has the minor nerfs on that blink. No blink, that's still 8 seconds. And the auto attack damage is still very prominent. And we saw a lot of Task Tracer, which is still very strong. Both do incredibly well on this battleground, so I want to see who plays around that.
And talking about playstyles, this is a map where there are very long control points, drawn out fights, which means there is hope for Simplicity.
Oh no.
But it's also a map where you get the first protected, the first objective, and depending, you know, this is another place where we get to see how much it's changed by the front wall change, right?
Yeah.
Because traditionally you get the first protector and you're looking at 2 walls, and the well, ideally, in an ideal world, maybe a 4 if somehow you've won a fight decisively and you get 10, but maybe that will keep Simplicity closer. Last time I said that did not work on Sky Temple, but I think there's more chance maybe for Volskaya, for it to happen for them here in Volskaya.
When you said long drawn out fights and hope, I thought you were about to toss me an Ariel.
There is always hope.
This is the thing. Is
She got nerfed.
She was nerfed, but there were some things that we saw from Midseason Brawl.
Sure.
When we came in, now that it's over, we can talk about it a little bit more. Behind the scenes, several Korean teams, all 3 Korean teams that were there, all said Ariel, Vala, new meta.
Old meta. That's new meta again.
New meta.
It's like fashion.
Play out though. Did not play out the way they anticipated. But still a thing that if we see, you know, certain heroes banned, it's still in the back pocket, I think, of some teams, at least mentally.
Well, we saw Sustain become such an important factor in the midseason Brawl drafts, and she has endless heals as long as you've got the hero to fuel her. So that's, you can get that, you can get behind that, but Crystal Aegis is still problematic because it's a giant bullseye. If you can't get that heal off, if the heal reduction happens, you know, Deckard Cain's in the meta now, he has the heal reduction. Simplicity bans Genji.
That was one of Lutano's few heroes that he played. He had a very small hero pool in that role. Genji is one. Again, Tracer is the other. We saw that banned out against Lutano before, so we'll see if that comes into play again for either of these teams. It's just a matter of also the one thing that we saw here on Volskaya against something like a Garrosh who has ultimate control, something that we saw a little bit earlier in EU, but we saw it mid-season brawl.
Oh no. I know what he's about to say.
Sergeant Hammer. That is a thing. I think that showed at mid-season brawl that it could potentially show up here in North America as well. It was very specific against the Garrosh. You have the knockback, and then at level 4 you have the self-cleanse, so engaging into a Sergeant Hammer is very difficult, as we see the Blaze banned out here. And the other thing is, for Simplicity, when they would run multiple melee, Zuna would play the Thrall as that third melee. It's still a possibility here. This is one of his better battlegrounds.
It is, because of the self-sustain that he has, the poke. You need lots of good poke. That's why you see things like Chromie, Jaina. I mean, some mana intensive, but you can have some talents that help with that. You also have some heroes that help with that by getting Malfurion, and Malfurion will be the first pick.
Yeah, a lot of people feel that Malfurion very strong right now. We talk about sustain. He has some of the best in the game. Very good. The heals, the roots, all that he offers in several battlegrounds. This is one that's very prominent.
Sustain is so important on Volskaya Foundry. That's why we saw Tempo Storm be willing to risk some Lucio picks on this map at the mid-season brawl. But the problem is the early fight, the early objective, if you don't get that, it can set you so far behind that once they got to the golden age, that 16, I guess, is the golden age, golden talent for Lucio. They were just so far behind, but Deckard Cain is another really good hero with his potions. Also, so much control over a large area that Deckard provides. So having that, and then some sort of follow-up, maybe set up for a Purification salvo.
We've seen that. We've definitely seen that combo. With Simplicity, we know that Hosting will at times run the Tassadar. It's been so long since I've seen K1 on that ranged role, and I wonder, is he on the Tracer train? Has he been practicing a lot of Tracer since his switch back to the range role? And is that even an option? There are certain teams where certain things aren't even an option. And I think that's one of the things that's, I'm not saying it necessarily has to be the top, but the Jaina in particular, we've seen North America. They love it on this battleground. You get some type of frontline control in the Jaina, you get the early burst. By level 7, once you get the cooldown reduction on your Q, then it's much easier to have not just burst, but a little bit of sustain as well, as long as you're hitting your skill shot. So we got it. We got it. I'm ready. Although, wait a minute.
You think that's...
It could be Zuna.
You right.
That is the thing, is that Zuna has always kind of had this roundabout way of finding his way back onto Tracer in times of need.
Oh man, though, if it's a K1 Pro Tracer, I'm convinced.
Oh, I'm all for it. I'm ready to see it.
I'm also really excited to see Collusion play Deckard Cain. Deckard was not available at the end of part 2, and Collusion has been such a good player since his swap to support.
Yeah.
I feel like last year, yes, but this year he's really come into his own as one of the best supports in North America. So consistent, so awesome, no matter what he's on. We've seen great Karazin plays, we've seen great Stukov plays, so I'm pumped to see him on our newest support.
One thing with Phoenix in particular, if you're a Tracer player, Phoenix, you can warp out of a pulse bomb. And that's the thing, as long as you time your warp, you can warp out of it as it blows up. You're just not there for it to blow up. Deckard has a level 4 talent where he provides a shield on top of his heal. He also has the Rejuve potion as well. But we've seen different talents picked up at that accordingly, so we'll see how that comes in, and whether now with Team Freedom, if they pick around the Tracer, finding ways to counter against it, and what heroes they have in mind.
Varian is one that a lot of teams at Midseason Brawl experimented with versus struggles in the wave clear department, but they do have Phoenix here. For me, I'm wondering how Varian looks now without armor, because his health regen were increased, but no armor on Taunt, just the increased health. Does that mean that it's a little bit easier because her pulse bomb would cut through that anyway? So it's a more attractive pick, potentially?
Shield wall at 10 is always the thing. Again, I think that it's just a matter of you have to find heroes that have self-sustain, have ways to survive during this. Deckard, you know, he's got 10 armor when he's near somebody. He does have the potential shield there. Blaze was taken away by them, so you don't have a bunker to drop into.
Right.
We've seen a lot of supports. Johanna does really well, sustaining in that front line, can blind Tracer, things of that nature. So if you don't have certain things available to you, you can neutralize a little bit of damage. So, and then there's always going to be the Garrosh at the end of the road.
Pretty tanky to try to survive.
Dahaka, by the way, can go underground. We've seen teams utilize certain things. You limit the risk, essentially, of, I have several heroes that aren't at high risk, so you limit those risks through the draft that are still objectively strong.
Haven't seen a Johanna yet. Oh. Chromie Dahaka.
I didn't expect the Chromie.
It is Volskaya. And Chromie is, that's an old Nasmus pick. So my thought here is, this time we see Yoda Dahaka, Nasmus Chromie. Or did Lutana play some Chromie too? In part 2?
Lutana didn't play a lot of
Lutana's like auto attack all day, baby, which is why I think
it's like
he'd
Tracer,
fit Phoenix
Genji,
very well.
Hanzo.
Okay, yeah.
That was a lot of what he did. And a little bit of Greymane before Greymane kind of fell out with a few minor nerfs. Now we need frontline and an offlaner. We saw Sonya banned out. With Chromie there, what is appealing? Because now you have to fear the potential temporal loop. You can recall, you can dimensional shift, but Malfurion cannot cleanse. Stitches, very high health, and this is definitely not what I was expecting.
Oh.
Oh, indeed.
That's a call out to Zug, right? You take his Stitches?
Zugrug will play Muradin. Muradin was one of his most played. But does Muradin really fit in here? Because now you wonder, you don't have the blind against Tracer. Stitches is Stitches. But now you wonder, who can deal with Tracer? Because right now you have no lockdown. There is a potential time trap, and that's it. There's a stay a while and listen, which can be blinked out of, and there's a tongue, which is really hard to land on a Tracer. I almost wouldn't be surprised if they've been practicing Varian.
Yeah.
But Varian is susceptible to being gorged and taken away because he doesn't have the mobility to get out. I am really intrigued by this draft.
Ready for action.
Zugrug defaults back to Muradin. It's a classic pick for him. He is a good pick for Volskaya Foundry too, because he has his second wind as the healing back, so he can leave and then re-engage quite quickly. I mean, Johanna is also a very good pick for this, and the double supporting, that's right up the Volskaya Foundry alley for simplicity. It's all about, can Team Freedom, these very squishy picks like Deckard Cain, not so much Dahaka, Deckard Cain, Chromie until she can get timeout, Phoenix, he has this shield capacitor, has ways of building that back up, but can they live through this Tracer?
I mean, the same way I talked about Johanna blinding Tracer. Alternatively, now he can blind Phoenix. So what we saw from Midseason Brawl, particularly somebody with the skill of Rich on Genji, was if there's not a lot of CC on the other team, you can run past and just wreak havoc on the backline. So I'm really curious how aggressive they'll be with the Johanna Stitches frontline and how much they feel they can just bully their way in.
That's true. We'll see. We're ready to get into the game.
I'm ready.
I'm ready. I'm pretty pumped. Yeah, it is weird to see Johanna and Stitches as that front line versus something that can go along with the Tracer. But regardless, it is Nasmus playing Phoenix, Lutano playing Chromie instead.
It seems fitting, I think, that we're finally adapting to this. Maybe that's just a map pick, a thing that they're looking to run. So on the other side, with a Stitches pick. Generally, when you go Stitches, Johanna, you need some damage, Gilly.
Ooh.
Except Stitches is like, hold up, wait a minute. There's a Chromie on the other side. I know I'm going to get bombed on the whole game, so I'm going with a little bit of spell armor.
Dampen magic. Hold your ground, too. Giving the increased iron skin shield. Trying to help with some of that damage, because there is a lot of damage capabilities between Chromie and Phoenix. Maybe struggling with trying to finish kills, and maybe that's also why we saw Muradin as someone who can also be the kill finisher. That's a lovely hook. It's exactly the kind of hook that you want. But Lutano has all the potions to retreat back to and is just fine.
Well, we also get the answer, as much as we've seen historically Hosty on the Tassadar, he'll try his hand at Tracer. So I'm sure he was watching a lot of midseason brawl. We'll see exactly how aggressive he wants to be. Again, with not much CC, I mean, it is a Storm Bolt, which has a wind-up animation that you can predict. And as a Tracer player, I'm not saying at this level, it's easy to dodge that type of CC. So I feel Hosty has potential to run. There was a dodge right there, and that was just a simple sidestep, no blink needed. But he has potential to run wild over this team.
The Stitches is going to struggle in the solo lane, especially with that slam build.
Yeah.
But generally what we see instead for this build then is more of the fishing hook later on, trying to nab someone out. Maybe it's Tracer goes in, forces the warp, and then you get a hook back out of that, trying to figure out where he's going to go.
Again, one of the things that you mentioned before as we got here, the first Protector, I remember it was probably March or so. I remember doing an interview with Lutano, and we were talking about some of the changes on Volskaya in particular. It used to be a much longer battleground before the Protector was buffed, and the meta was very different around the battleground. And then he told me afterwards, he's like, yeah, he's like, it's literally whoever wins the first Protector and it's game over. And he was kind of the prophet as that kind of came to fruition. And now, again, with the changes to the experience, how condemning is the first Protector versus the old one? So a lot of the items try and determine that, and right now there's heavy contention over this healing pole.
It's a 5v5. There's going to be the force of the warp away. Yoda's used his essence to try to stay tanky toward the front, but the front line of Team Freedom is falling fairly low. These roots, this is making it kind of difficult to stay here for Simplicity. Stitches goes down, Cap is all but dead. Team Freedom, even against that double support because of the zone control that they have, walks away with the heal pulse and first blood.
Willing to commit the turrets down in that fight too. Generally something that's held here. I think that the tradition is by the time this goes again, they'll cycle out again, see them picked up one more time. But the other thing is we see the extra armor for Tassadar once that shield breaks, as opposed to the extra healing, which has generally been the go-to for Tracer.
Right.
But when you have the potential of the blow-up on the side of Chromie, it generally is like, all right, well, maybe we need a little bit of armor for when this thing does pop, if we do get a temporal loop or a full combo lands.
Chromie is difficult for a support, and especially when you've got that Malfurion, because he's already going to struggle with the burst heal, and then because she has such a long range, you sometimes just are not aware where the blow-up's going to come in, and then all of a sudden, you're dead. So for this, with Hosty trying to just do his job for the team, being that solo damage dealer Tracer, this tries to make it a little bit freer, and though you won't get the heal from that, you still have the Malfurion behind you. And Zuna, though, Lutano's been doing work between Lutano and the Nasmus Phoenix.
It's a deadly combo that when we heard about the role swap, that's the one I'm looking forward to. When I think about what Lutano can do and what I saw Nasmus do last year, it's something I feel can really carry this team. And so far, early dividends in game one. We've got another full level lead here for Team Freedom with those 2 kills. We'll see if Simplicity can even it back up, but Protector looked like it's going over here to Team Freedom to start the game.
Heal reduction for both sides, Strangling Vines for Malfurion, Emerald picked up for Collusion's Deckard Cain. Deckard and Chromie are going to be inside of this Protector. One thing to keep in mind, Stitches on Volskaya Foundry. You gotta leave when the Protector gets low or almost out of time, or you will be hooked out of this. Oh, that was Pulse Bomb trying to bring this down.
I think it's a good call. I mean, early kill potential I think has been hard to come by for Hosty. Has been sitting on that for quite a while. Level 7 picked up now by Simplicity as they start to lock things in. You know, this is the part where as these walls would fall, that experience would jump up quite a bit more. Definitely far more subdued here. Speaking of subdued, Johanna, taking a page out of Cattle's book. This is a very popular one for him. If you can get 4 members with one of those punishes, then you get the permanent slow every time you hit that. But if you hit 2 people, you still get a pretty significant, so a lot of control on the front line.
Right, I feel like that helps a lot with one of the primary problems of Johanna just being able to get into a good position of starting the engage. Let's dodge on the hook. And in that sense, having Dahaka and Muradin up in the front, it's pretty likely, even as we've seen Team Freedom grouping up on the control points with their backline, it's likely that King Caffeine's going to be able to get that consistently, even if he doesn't finish the quest.
With level 10, Team Freedom, they're coming in, they're being the bully. They're coming into your backyard, they're taking all your toys because there's almost nothing Simplicity can do here. Except get a hook over, that's going to be a Muradin who has a Dwarf Toss conveniently.
You know, that subdue so funny. I was playing with a friend yesterday and we were against a Johanna and she picked up that talent and immediately completed it because we were not where we were supposed to be. She was like, oh, good for her. I mean, bad for us, but
it's
good for her
because
it's real tough to play into, but good for her because that's a hard thing to finish. That made me laugh.
It's one of the hardest quests to complete just because it requires 4. I mean, again, even if you hit 2, you get value out of it, but completing it all together is not that common.
We have a 2-level lead in favor of Team Freedom as the next control point. It's going to be in the top, as it always is. And Team Freedom is in the comfortable place again. This is where they want to be, is getting that early game lead and then just running the macro game against Simplicity to a T.
Really wonder how Team Freedom does handle the next few instances, the few moments. Ideally, they want to get to 13 and keep Simplicity from there. Depending on how Simplicity goes, we would oftentimes see a team, when you're behind in experience, you rotate down to the bot lane, and while the control point is top, you take some of that experience back through the 4 towers to get back into the game and get 13. That's not as easy to do nowadays. So for Team Freedom, getting to 13 could be a significant advantage. They would definitely play in their favor to continue the snowball that we know that they're capable of.
Zuna used Bile in the bot, and Simplicity were heading down trying to get the pick on Yoda as soon as they hit heroic abilities. 2 of them haven't even picked up their heroic abilities yet, but they were already heading down. But then using the Bile, I feel like it headed off Yoda so that he was able to get away, burned that cooldown, we'll be back in 20 seconds. But because of that, Simplicity spent a lot of time trying to go down to see if they could get that pick, and Team Freedom took advantage of that, getting up to the top, getting some more damage here, and importantly having the lane pushed so that they could have a better setup for this control point. Also just buying time until they do get that 13 that you talked about.
Well, I said this before, is that Simplicity and Zuna teams are not afraid to fight in a talent tier down. If you're going to fight into any talent tier, as a nice warp out.
Wow.
I don't even know if that technically hit. It was close.
I think it would have pulled him out of it.
I think it would have pulled him out of it. But either way, Simplicity, they're not afraid to fight into things. And I think 13 talent tier, if there's ever a talent tier you're going to fight into, it is going to be 13. Again, this is the general rotation. It's going to look a lot different than we traditionally see. You get your experience back through structures. It's one of the best things you can do when you're down a talent tier. The problem is these structures are significantly less in value. So when you watch the experience climb here, it will not look the same unless you get a pick to go with it.
Pulse Bomb. Purification salve out of this. These body blocks are ridiculous, but Yoda just barely staying alive, and with the slowing sands there too. And Collusion showing up. Do they keep them fully here? That was a great route. I was like, bring Chromie down, because she's got some stacks she needs to get. She's sitting at 30 now in Sandblast. They brought down Muradin, still sitting on the point. They'll have a protector very soon. Simplicity gets nothing. Team Freedom are stopping them at every juncture.
It's a difficult comeback. See what Team Freedom will do as they have another protector here. Isolation was used to try and get that kill onto Stitches, by the way, unable to do so. But I don't think it's going to matter for quite some time as the protector now heading towards the top fort. We'll see if we see the traditional rotation of going top-bottom. I feel this is an opportunity for teams to maybe adjust that strategy, push into keep walls because you can stretch that lead by doing so. But with the rotation already down by Team Freedom, you can see 3 members down there in the bot lane already prepping for what you could call impending doom towards that bot lane as the protector marches down.
I haven't played with this Johanna skin before, and I love the Sins Exposed. Has the little horde symbols. That's a dope skin right there. 2 forts from the protector, and the 13 advantage that came with it is going to skyrocket Team Freedom, and they opened up that bottom lane. Now, Simplicity needs to be very careful about how they handle the rest of this. This is the time to want to fight, and so they're looking to see if they can get someone around this. You know, the support and the main tank are inside of the protector, so if they could catch someone like Lutano here,
It's just not going to happen. The Protector does have 5 seconds, but Zuna was afraid that the Protector was about to collapse on him. Ended up using that Putrid Bile. He said you don't want to explode too far away, but you can see the lockdown. Hosty goes in with the Pulse Bomb, uses the recall, stay a while and listen. That's going to be interrupted. You can see the salvo out in return. That's going to be Deckard, the first to fall in this fight. Tiger JK falls on the other side, no supports. We'll see how long this continues.
There's still the supporting of K1 throwing his shields. Hosty trying to dodge the best of his ability, but with that double towers, this is hard to fight into for Simplicity, especially with the front line being so low. Johanna just eats it, and now Johanna's dead. And Team Freedom dives forward, looking at Zuna, clearing space, if nothing else, to take out this final fort with the 16 that Team Freedom amassed during that time.
We're just going to fall into the same trap that we saw last time, is that you're going to be down a talent tier before the next control point, and for Simplicity, we saw that experience that they got from that bottom port wall. It's going to look exactly the same, except that bar is going to move even less as the requirement to get to that next level is even higher. So for Simplicity, Gilly, I feel like they're going to have to take a risk. If it doesn't pay off, then you're probably not going to see much difference, right? It's already a very difficult game for them, but they have the potential. They got the blow up. It's just, can they get the fights to turn a little bit different? Even if Zuna lands that hook there, there's no team around. They've got to get on the same page. They've got to find something to make happen.
The problem is, this is not Sky Temple where they might have been able to force a fight around the boss. Trying to get Team Freedom to show up. They're even getting it here. Team Freedom do come up to the heal pulse, but Simplicity don't feel like this is the ideal place for them to be able to get those fights. But they have the Stitches factor, and maybe Fishing Hook is the deal. Stitches ended up building back into Slam Build, just wanting the dampen magic, but...
I'm scratching my head here because Zuna used his hook and saw multiple people in the bottom on Team Freedom while the rest of his team was on that healing camp. We saw a slight check on the side of Team Freedom, but there were multiple people that had to have shown. I'm so surprised that Simplicity conceded that. They had a numbers advantage. There's something missing in communication right now.
Well, that was communicated well. Unfortunately, it was missing one thing, and that was the target of the hook. That's what they need. That's what they have to do. And they're starting to group up together. They've had Stitches separated from the team for a long time from here, but let's see if they can get this kill on Yoda. Goes into the tunneling claws. Now that's down. The body blocks. Blessed Shield back from the side. Now they move back into position for the body blocks, and the hook is there. Finally, Simplicity get that kill, but at what cost?
16 was picked up, and now they are just taking so much damage.
Oh, wow!
Salvo locks down multiple members. Zuna trying to get the slow, as he did pick up that slow on his slam. But Yoda, very far out. That is one of those things that we talk about with the game sense, is that off-lane role is how far can you push out? Is it necessary to push out? What value are you getting and what risk are you putting yourself in? And Yoda right there showed a little bit of maybe overextension in this role. It's something that it's changed a lot since the last time that he played it. So good rotation over by Simplicity to get onto that even talent tier. They're right back in the game. Yeah,
the willingness to bring Zuna with them and stop the split soaking has given them 16 now off of that kill, which lets them contest this control point. There is no Dahaka and no Johanna. Johanna's starting to run back, but Simplicity need to be a little bit careful because Dahaka, if he has Brush Stock up, can try to come back in and rejoin the team before. He's not going to do that. For the time being, looking for the 20 game, knowing that Team Freedom can play this out slowly.
These Putrid Biles, they're not timely. I think, oh, there's going to be a hook. There's going to be the Pulse Bomb. There's going to be the land. The Twilight Dream. Deckard goes down instantly. That's a good start. Nazma's forced to warp out as his shield is down. Hosty able to live. He's getting some heals. Let's see if they get the re-engage. Yoda in very deep. Does land the tongue. But Simplicity, Gilly, is starting to turn this around.
Oh, that Dragon's Eye does some damage to Zuna. Hook was just used there. The turrets, though, the items that Team Freedom have had, every time Simplicity looks to get more than just the initial kill, they're fighting into what feels like a 5th member of Team Freedom. They've taken them down. Simplicity wants the contest here.
They should. They still, Deckard is not here. There's going to be the tongue land. There's going to be Putrid Bile. Zugra going to be landed, but Malfurion gets targeted. Salvo coming out as well. That's going to go in. Zuna, he's close to falling. King Caffeine, he's trying to walk away, but he's not going to make it out alive. And now Hosty, he's under assault. See if we've got a warp in. It's not even necessary. And Simplicity not able to take a 5v4 sans support.
It feels like a lot is on Hosty's shoulders with these fights. even with the damage that Putrid Bile can do, the slam build for Stitches, after the initial pick, things start to fall apart. You could see the adaptation from Simplicity throughout this game. They are realizing what they need to do with their composition, but getting the one kill and then not being able to get more of it, timeout there, the tanky front line, Phoenix having his auxiliary shields that lets him build that shielding back up makes him so that along with Warp, he can also get back. Just makes it really hard for Simplicity to get anything more. And that whole time, Team Freedom held the channel so that they can get the Protector now. And they have 20 along with this push.
Generally, when you have 20 and it's a Protector and you have this much advantage and this much health, there is no core that survives. The probability of them ending here extremely high. Team Freedom, they're on the victory march. They're going in, shields falling rapidly. We do see Putrid Bile used it in return.
The Condemn was so good. It stopped Nazmus from going into Warp, but he has the Unconquered Spirit. Finally, Phoenix is brought down, and that was a good target to take out on the core. But the problem is that Protector, which is just ripping through, dismantling the core of Simplicity.
It's just overwhelming, to say the least, as the Protector has taken over game number 2 here. Team Freedom, despite some adversity this game, not as clean as game 1, but credit to Simplicity for taking the fights. That one hook that landed on the Decker definitely turned that in their favor momentarily, but Team Freedom held strong. And generally, Gilly, that's a moment where we would see Team Freedom in part 2 of phase 1, they would probably concede, they would probably retreat, but they actually showed resolve, and that's something we didn't see during those initial picks in part 2. So I give a lot of credit to Team Freedom there for turning that fight and willing to stay in it.
And I think a big part of that, we have to go back to what Zugrug said, which is putting Nazmus more with the 4-man, is even if Yoda goes down in the solo lane, he can still try to help make sure that his being more in the shot calling role, that they're still able to get things done because he's not trying to focus on the 1v1. This is not the only team that has expressed issues with trying to shot call from that role. Caterpillar, last year for Tempo Storm, swapped over into main tank for a time and put Fury back on the solo role so that he could be in that 4-man. So it seems to be working out extremely well for Team Freedom, and I'm happy to see it.
It's one of those things that when you see that, you know that you can get good, valuable information, but when it does come time to the team fights, it's like, well, I can't exactly call the fight. I'm trying to brush soccer, and I'm trying to rotate down. I've got to look for my moment to get in there, and I think it definitely is showing for them. But for Simplicity, we've seen 2 very different drafts, 2 very aggressive drafts. The Stitches Johanna, not something I see. But I think the lack of damage from that slam at level 1, which is generally when you look at Stitch's numbers when he goes full slam build, you're like, wait a minute, how is he near the top in damage? It was nowhere near, and I think they were severely lacking in that, especially against a Deckard that just has infinite sustain, it seems like, and ultimate control. And you're relying on the one pick from the Pulse Bomb. It just didn't add up to me. Yeah,
and I look back at that last fight and getting the Deckard pick, and both Twilight Dream and Pulse Bomb were used for that, and I almost wonder, Deckard King is not a tanky fellow. I think maybe they could have gotten that kill and then tried to get something back off of that, because in the time that Hosty was trying to rebuild his Pulse Bomb back up, you're right, the damage felt lacking for them. But we'll see if they can turn it around. We're going to go to a commercial break. When we come back, we'll have Freedom versus Simplicity Game 3.
Greetings, my friends. So nice to see you around the hearth once more.
Even Paladin is definitely one of the strongest contenders, if not the strongest at this point. The actual class diversity still remains high.
Bunny Hopper has conceded. AH is going to the Summer Championships.
This time we're going to be seeing different takes on the same types of decks and different lineup strategies.
Oh!
It's go time. This is the Hearthstone Summer Championship.